But my thing is, what do you use the squeezy for? What do you use this for? Hey, what's up guys? It's your girl Sarah here, the Queen of F.E.A.Ns, and welcome back to the Chateau for another video. It is a Saturday morning. It's late morning, almost afternoon, and I am actually about to head out of the house. I am going to meet up with a group of friends in Baltimore, Maryland, so that we can get together and blend up our own batch of whiskey. There's a distillery in Baltimore, and I'm pretty sure they're all over, so you probably can Google one, but I'll put the information to the one that we're going to down below. But yeah, at this distillery, they have their own different whiskeys, and you can create your own blend. And I thought it would be super cool to have a Chateau house blend of whiskey. I'm not 100% sure I even like whiskey, but I do like a little bit of everything, especially in mixed drinks. So I am going to head out to Baltimore and we are going to have a funky good time. Probably get something to eat while we're out there and all of that. But you guys know the jam. I don't have a lot of time because I'm always running late. But I wanted to come on and share with you all what I'm going to wear during this hangout with my friends. Okay guys, so this is the look. And yes, I'm wearing more than a shirt. I'm actually wearing some denim shorts. And I got these from Banana Republic. You guys probably have seen them before. It's like the frayed hem, which I absolutely love. The frayed, the better. Absolutely love that. I have on a white shirt that my daughter bought me some years ago from Fashion Nova, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but I think she got it from Fashion Nova. And it's just a sleeveless bodysuit that snaps in the crotch area. Kind of sheer, but I wasn't too worried about that because I'm wearing this overshirt. Now the overshirt, absolutely love it. It is my Balenciaga overshirt. I don't know, yeah, by now you guys have seen the vlog that I did on 2222, my 2222 celebration, and I think it was February when I purchased this. I shared the sales associates information who helped me with, you know, getting my shirt and a few other things from Balenciaga, but I absolutely love it. Finally getting a chance to wear it, and I think that it goes nicely with a nice chill cool day because, as I shared before, it's not too hot today. It's in the 70s, but upper 70s, about 77. So I think that this will work out nicely. As far as shoes, I already have them on. I am wearing my old white Birkenstocks, and obviously they have been worn in. That's discoloration, not dirt. But absolutely love these shoes. Super lightweight. I feel like I may have purchased them from Nordstrom some years ago, but Birkenstocks are always around. If you Google Birkenstocks, all of the different styles will come up, and I definitely would encourage you to get the foam ones because they're super lightweight and very comfortable. So I'm going to be wearing those today. As far as accessories, kind of the same old that you guys have seen me wear. I am wearing my Old Faithful, as I call them, Chanel studs that I purchased from the Chanel in Washington, D.C. Not sure if they still have them. For necklaces, I am wearing my S gold necklace that my sister purchased for me, and I'm not 100% sure where she bought it, but thank you, Michelle. I also am wearing my same old Alex and Ani necklace with the singular Swarovski crystal, and you guys have seen me wear that before. For a watch, I'm wearing my piece of jewelry because, as usual, the battery's dead, but it's a black and gold Michael Kors watch. And for all the people who keep asking me, no, I don't want to put a battery in it because I don't use it for time. I use my cell phone for time and ask people for time. I just like to make sure I have on that piece of jewelry, that nice heavy piece of jewelry on my arm every now and again. As far as rings, I have on the same old, my black diamond, which I absolutely love black diamonds, if you guys can't tell. And then my solitaire that I always wear, my diamond solitaire. I don't think if we talked about the belt, but if we did, I'll just repeat myself. I have on my Ferragamo belt, and I opted to put the gold buckles. I've shared this with you guys before, probably in my very early videos, where I have multiple colors that I can change out, you know, swap out as far as the buckle is concerned. But today I opted to do gold because I think that the gold is, you know, looking good on my tan, my butter pecan tan that I've been working on already during the spring. As far as accessories continues, I am going to wear my Tom Ford glasses because I think I mentioned to you guys before that I probably will put the top down because it's so beautiful outside, but the sun is still out. So I'm gonna wear my Tom Ford glasses, nice and dark. For a purse, not really gonna carry a purse. While I was in Balenciaga, I purchased this little card case, I guess you could say, kind of like a coin purse, but card case. I purchased this and I'm just gonna hang it here because I'm going on something like a date, kind of, sort of, so I don't really need any money. Hopefully he's not watching. But anyway, so I'm going to wear this. I'm gonna put my ID in it, my credit card, and a few dollars. So I'm just gonna hang it here from my waist. That way I'm hands-free. As far as a scent for today, I am not wearing perfume. I'm actually wearing a scented lotion, and I think this is my first time sharing this with you guys on the channel, the Fenty Beauty lotion. And I don't know why there is a little bit of a reflection there, but anyway, I'm wearing the Fenty Beauty body cream, and it's called Butter Drop. Let me tell you guys, funny story. Like I have time for that, but anyway, funny story. When I had COVID, I just ordered this. So it came in, got COVID, and I opened it up and I tried to smell it, and I didn't smell anything. And I was thinking, well, why in the world would Rihanna create a body cream with no scent at all? Obviously, there are body creams without any scent, any fragrance in them because people are allergic, but it just wasn't what I was expecting. Well, little did I know I had COVID and lost my sense of smell. Super crazy, but happy I can smell it now because it smells so good to me. I think that it's a really, really good summer scent, and it doesn't really require you to add any perfume on top of it. It can stand alone and smells good. You can buy it from Sephora. I think that's the only place I actually have seen it. I'm not 100% sure, but I purchased my small container from Sephora. I know that they have larger ones as well. Anyway, this is the scent for today. It smells so good. As far as makeup is concerned, you guys already know the drill. I don't really have on a lot of makeup, but the things that I am wearing, 3 things. I am wearing my Givenchy eyeliner, and I've shared this with you all before. And then in one of my most recent videos, I shared with you guys that whenever I'm going out and I'm gonna be in the sun for an extended period of time, especially if I'm gonna be in the drop top, I want to not only protect my skin, and I'm gonna share with you what I use to protect my skin from, heat damage and all of the UV rays. I also try to protect my lips because generally we don't put sunscreen on our lips. I'll link this down below again, but this lip gloss here, not only is it a gloss, but it's a plumper, and it also has SPF 30 in it. So makes your lips nice and shiny, and you guys know clear gloss is my jam, even though I do like colors as well. As far as protecting my skin, the third item that I'm actually wearing is Murad SPF. So it's called Invisibler Perfecting Shield. SPF 30. It's clear. I actually already have it on, and you don't see a white film or anything. Definitely want to invest in this SPF here because it definitely protects you, but it also doesn't give you that white film that a lot of sunblocks leave on your skin. I know that there's another one out there, Black Girl Sunblock or Black Skin Sunblock or something like that. I haven't had the opportunity to try it, but actually would love to. Maybe once I finish this, I'll invest in that. Anyway, you guys already know I'm late, so I gotta get out of this door. I'll see you guys at the Whiskey Distillery.
All right, come on. Turned up on the jolly, I would mentally rock, I'm hitting the block. Kodak bop, I would hit a nigga with that Glock. Really do no talking, I would did it bop on any thought she said. I would let it rip on all of y'all just try me, bitch. I promise, call me cake. I got knowledge, keep the
red with you guys.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I want to do the wicked crab cake, but I need to find it because I'm just going off what Tasha said.
It would be sandwiches, right? 29 sandwich. Crab cake sandwich, and that comes with a side. You can do fries, coleslaw, a Caesar salad, a mixed green salad, Brussels sprouts.
Fries.
I'll do the same for the Brussels sprouts.
You got it.
I love Brussels sprouts.
Let's see those menus on here. Would you like anything to drink besides water?
I'll have a. Oh wait, I'm here.
What are you looking for?
I'm gonna try this blueberry mojito.
The blueberry mojito. That is alcohol free. Would you like to add alcohol?
Oh, yeah.
She's like, hey,
what's the point in a mojito if you don't have alcohol?
Rum, vodka.
A vodka.
I've had a lot of people getting vodka. Is Tito's okay?
Yeah.
Tito's, blueberry mojito.
they got a.
Just take a little while in the boiler, but they're just gonna try to get it out as quickly as possible.
So we're here. Okay. I don't even know where we will go. Here? That's an interesting flower. It's not real, obviously. We just know welcome.
Shane.
I don't know how to make those. What you call it?
It's good.
Summer cup. Do you just order that? They had you twisted. Ooh, okay.
Joining us this afternoon to blend your own whiskey. I'm going to go ahead and get started with a little history of the rise and fall of rye whiskey. Then I will turn you over to Eli, our distiller, one of the co-founders and owners, and who will take you to the distillery so that you can tour that space. And then we'll invite you back in here to blend your own bottle to take with you today. We like to throw back to things that have happened in history. And there was a time when you could have walked into a bar or a liquor store, tried some things directly from the barrel, pick the one you like the best, and take it home with you in your glass, your gallon jug, your pint glass. But today we are going to seal up a cute little bottle for you to take home and enjoy. And what am I missing? Oh, welcome to the cocktail gallery. We just opened this space about a year ago, and we're very excited to have a proper bar with ice and glasses to welcome you into. In the old days, if you are familiar with us or have been following us for a while, you would have been welcomed in with tiny little plastic cups of spirits at whatever the ambient temperature of the distillery was. So right now it'll be a lot of orange and be sampling for you. So welcome to cocktails. But we're using this space to connect with the creative and artistic community here in Baltimore, which we always feel such a part of. By featuring local artists pretty much everywhere we can. The walls perspective. My background is really in the history and anthropology of distilled spirits as America was being colonized. So, just to give you a very brief summary of the rise and fall of rye whiskey, the first thing that we can actually trace back that was distilled here in the States is not whiskey, it's brandy, we think. We know that in what was then New Amsterdam, now Staten Island, that they had stills and then they had apple orchards. So we made a giant leap of faith, essentially, a very educated guess that they were probably distilling these apples. If you've ever had cider in the fridge for too long, you know, begin to pick up that spray in your mouth feel as the fermentation gets going. And so it is very easy to begin a distillation process if what you're distilling ferments on its own. That natural yeast on the outside and all that sugar on the inside make it very easy. The other thing that made apple brandy such a big spirit here is Johnny Appleseed, actually. Third grade told me he was trying to convince people to plant apple orchards to make pies and applesauce and delicious eating apples. But that is actually not the best way to raise an orchard for eating. And so a lot of those apples were in such quantities that they became either hard cider or brandy themselves. And this is the predominant spirit of the Northeast, at least until colonizers entered the Caribbean. And they discovered that the people there are making rum from a waste product of sugarcane processing. They appropriate this spirit. We see rum distilleries opening as far north as Boston and Rhode Island. And we see a lot of people enslaved who support the colonizers' want for more rum. So throughout anywhere the climate will allow, Louisiana notoriously, but Florida, Georgia, up into the Carolinas, a lot of land is turned over to producing sugarcane, and a lot of people are enslaved to support the colonizers' desire for more rum. And we rely very heavily on the spirit of these people until we get to declaring ourselves independent from the crown. And so when we get to that stage, it's not just tea that's being taxed. This is the second time I'll cite that elementary school left out the boozy fun parts. It's actually all of our creature comforts that are being taxed. And rum is at the very top of that list. So rum, sugarcane, molasses, and sugar are all also part of these tariffs. Anything that can be fermented and distilled into rum has a tariff on it now. And we are trying to raise an army. And we promised all of our soldiers alcohol, ration booze every day. It's a great way to get men to enlist. It's also a cultural norm of the time to tipple every day. And so we need to figure out a way to give them a spirit without paying a tariff that's putting money into the hands of the opposition, essentially. And this is where rye whiskey really begins to shine. We have a lot of Irish and Scottish descendants in this region, and they have been distilling for hundreds of years before they immigrated to this region, to the Mid-Atlantic. They brought stills with them, a working knowledge of how to operate stills. And they've also brought a really great working knowledge of how to ferment and then distill a grain. So when they get here to Pennsylvania, Maryland, Virginia, it's not such a leap for them to start distilling this rye grain we have here. And we have so much rye here because it's something we use as a cover crop. So after we're finished harvesting the cash crops of the spring and summer, we'll plant rye into the fields to restore the nitrogen into the soil. And that means we have an abundance of it, and we don't know what to do with it. So whiskey is always the answer when you don't know what to do with something, or booze at least. By the end of the Revolutionary War, rye whiskey is the #1 spirit in America. George Washington actually owns the largest rye whiskey distillery as well. And it doesn't hurt that as soldiers go home to wherever they're from, who've been fighting here in the Revolutionary War, they take this love or addiction to rye whiskey home with them. And the demand for rye whiskey continues to increase throughout the 19th century. By the middle of the century, we see travel writers and anthropologists coming into America. Are you okay? I know. The glass just shattered internet. Sorry. By the middle of the 19th century, we see travel writers and anthropologists coming into America to write home about whether or not people should move or travel to And in 1862, the first cocktail book is published. It's published by Jerry Thomas. He's a barman himself. He's been going around trying other people's drinks too. And so in his book, Drinks and How to Mix Them, he documents how common it is for cocktails to include rye whiskey. And so it's a great primary source for us to see how prevalent rye whiskey is at this stage in our history. The other thing that's important to note is we have two distillates that are specific to America. We have bourbon and we have rye. You can make them anywhere here in the States and call them that. But we have two state-specific distillates as well, and that's Kentucky bourbon and Maryland rye. So there was a point where they were equal levels of cachet. And we know that during the 19th century, you could walk into a bar and ask for a Maryland rye. In the same way that today you might walk into a bar and ask what Islay scotches or Japanese whiskeys are available. So how does rye begin to fall? Well, when we get to the 20th century, we engage in the First World War. And this time, instead of making delicious distillates for our soldiers, we need to make fuel as our way to support the war effort. So many of our distilleries are converted into making fuel. And we deplete a lot of the barrels that we have stockpiled during the war. When we get back from being overseas and fighting, try to get our distilleries up and running again, Prohibition quickly follows. And so while here at home, Maryland is an outlier of Prohibition, we're the only state of 48 at the time to not enact our own state or local laws to support the federal prohibition. So that is why Maryland is known as the Free State. It's also why Baltimore is known as the Wet City, because it was fairly easy to find a drink here. It's one of the reasons we have so many little basement bars and not as many super cute speakeasies as other cities, because you just kind of had to be out of the eyesight of the federal enforcement. We couldn't distill to support the whole country's demand for rye whiskey any longer. We've been paying tax on every drop of alcohol we made since Alexander Hamilton funded the Revolutionary War with the whiskey tax. So it's very easy for the federal government to step in and close down our large-scale distilleries. Here, if you're from here, you probably know somebody who talks about their great uncle who was distilling somewhere on their property. My favorite are when older gentlemen tell me stories about their uncles distilling in the outhouses. That's definitely not where I would want to look if I was in the force nation. So a good place to hide your booze. We here at home are still drinking our rye whiskey throughout Prohibition. We know where to find a drink, but the rest of the country needs to find a substitute. And they look to Canada. Canada makes rye whiskey as well, and they think, great, we'll just get it from them instead. But the problem is that Canadian rye is different from American to begin with, but it's also passing through the hands of several different bootleggers before it makes it into your cocktail. And as it travels from hand to hand, there's a spirit of water is added to extend the yield and make more cash. But then also, the color and the flavor aren't right, so cheap additives are included in what you're eventually drinking. And that's pretty much swill. It's the sort of thing that when you order it, you know you're going to wake up with a pretty bad hangover the next day. It starts to fall in favor, it falls in price, and by the end of Prohibition, it's just not in demand across the country the same way it was. We tried very hard to get our distilleries here in Maryland back up and running again, but we never quite get back to that same level. Hollywood helps this happen. They often romanticize Prohibition, but in doing so, they often depict the vagabond, the man on the street corner who's drinking out of a brown paper bag, as somebody enjoying rye whiskey, or the gangster as somebody enjoying rye. And so it's almost criminalized or villainized in the eyes of the public. And so people don't really know how ordered in polite society any longer outside of Maryland. We lose our last rye whiskey distillery in 1978. That's when Heaven Hill takes over Pikesville and moves them south. But you can still find a bottle of rye whiskey back to the place it had once held. So in 2014, the Baltimore Whiskey Company was founded. It took them a little while to figure out things that I'm so glad I didn't have to work on, like licensing and where do you buy a still when home distillation is illegal? Where to get huge quantities of grain? Where to buy barrels? All of these little components. But in 2015, they sold their very first bottle of gin. And for several years after that, you can find us at the farmers markets under a big tent that said Baltimore Whiskey Company, where we would be selling gin and apple brandy with no whiskey in sight. That's because they were doing their best to come up with the best recipe they could. A lot of research went into those barrels. Research here at the distillery is a lot of fun. You'll get to experience it in just a little bit because it involves drinking a whole bunch of different things. And so we finally released our first barrel of rye whiskey in March of 2018. It sold out immediately here in Baltimore. But we also sent 2 bottles off to the World Spirits competition that takes place in San Francisco. And we earned double gold there, which sort of solidified for the guys that Baltimore was ready for the return of rye. But maybe the rest of the world was too. So I'm going to go ahead and turn you guys over to Eli now. He'll take you to the distillery for that portion of the tour. We are no longer the wet city, so cocktails do need to stay in this room. And it's pretty warm over there. If you have any jackets or anything with you today, you're welcome to leave them at your table. These tables will be yours for the remainder of the afternoon.
All right. I introduced myself over there, but yeah, we're gonna go out these doors, down that way.
Then there's a place that made like plastic containers and so then you can crack through it, walk the building, and
right around there, I'll go ahead and start it off.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Woo, it's nice and warm in here. Yeah, me too. I'm getting drunk off the scent. You said it's hot?
Yeah.
It smells good though. It smells delicious.
It's a little warm, no air conditioning, no heat in the winter, so just helps the barrels do their thing. So, again, my name's Eli. I'm the head distiller, one of the co-founders as well, and we've been making whiskey for almost 7 years now. Coming up this November is our 7th birthday, and we have almost entirely made rye whiskey, though we have done some bourbon. We have some bourbon aging up. We have some single malt and a few other things going. And then, as you saw in the cocktail gallery, we also make gin, apple brandies, liqueurs like Amaro, if you're familiar with those. And so a lot of different things. But really, we built the place, we designed the distillery. A lot of thought process went into making rye whiskey. So rye whiskey, we know, has this big historical importance in Maryland. And we were around. I was brewing beer actually while Max and Ian were kind of coming up with the idea, and I was helping them with the technical side, and never really thought I would make whiskey, but lo and behold, 7 years later. So we knew that Maryland had this history. We wanted to partake in it. At the time, there was nobody. I guess Sagamore, they'd been working on their project, but we didn't know about that, and there was really no one else making rye on a large scale at all. So we wanted to do that. We wanted to partake in that history. But being who we were, we also wanted to do our own thing. We weren't that interested in recreating an historical style, so to speak. There's a lot of talk about what is Maryland rye. Our rye is Maryland rye because we make it in Maryland. And actually all the grain and malt that's used in it is coming from Maryland as well. So, but beyond that, there are a few other potential historical tie-ins, but we didn't go out to just recreate something. We wanted to make the best whiskey we could, the whiskey that we wanted to drink, and we wanted to make it a rye whiskey because we think that rye also has a lot to offer as a grain. So the basics are that in order to be a rye whiskey, it has to be at least 51% rye grain. It has to come out of the still at no higher than 160 proof. It has to be aged in a new charred oak barrel for some amount of time. There's no limit on how you can do it for a day if you really wanted to. Would do anything, but and then it can't go into the barrel above 125 proof. So first question also though, anybody who's had our whiskey before? Say, oh, yeah, two. All right. I think it's yep. And everybody else, fans of rye whiskey or bourbon? Okay.
Sure. Fan of alcohol.
Yeah, last door is the same way, so it's good. We get a lot of new faces in the door. You know, like I said, we've been making whiskey for a long time, but our old location was just down the street, about a mile and a half away. And you can see our smaller still up there. We only had that one still. It took about 7 days of work to get 2 barrels of whiskey. And then we came here, we got the second still. And so we've been making, for about the last 2.5 to 3 years, we've been making 20 barrels a month. So a lot more whiskey, trying to get the word out now, and excited to have you all in to try. Our grain, like I said, is coming from Thurmont, Maryland. It's about 40 miles away from here. And, you know, it's actually hard to find someone that will grow rye grain for us because Maryland, in Maryland, they actually pay people to use rye as a cover crop. And because it does a good job of scavenging nitrogen from the soil so it doesn't get like run off into the bay. But then there's an added cost in order to clean that grain up, to have it be the quality that we need. But fortunately, I put the word out that we were looking, and then I got a picture from our farmer Charles of his just room filled with whiskey. So he was the guy. He wanted to stop doing corn and soy and hay and whatever. He wanted whiskey. So that's how we found him, and we've been working with him ever since. He's got about 100 acres, and we use about 60 acres of that a year in order to make our 240 barrels. So we'll head this way a little bit. If you have any questions, just feel free to just shoot them out.
So you guys have been in this warehouse before you moved up
so this whole building, right?
Yeah.
So we were in a totally separate location. Everything we had was there. When we came over here, we came with like 40 barrels or something like that. So the way this whole building of the Union Collective came together is that Union Craft Brewing right over there. They were also like a mile down the street. They had outgrown their space, and they were looking to, move into something bigger, but they couldn't find something that was just right for them. So they ended up getting this whole 150,000 square foot space, and then asked like-minded makers if they wanted to come in. So that's how we ended up with us. An ice cream factory, the Charmery, Bank Coffee. There's a climbing gym. Doesn't really fit. You don't want to drink and climb. I see their stretchers coming out all the time. So apparently just maybe don't climb. I'm not sure. And then the winery opened up a few years later. So we got almost all the vices, and it's a great spot. We got our own parking lot, music all the time. We've been really lucky to be here, and it's allowed us to produce a lot more whiskey. So I'm going to run you through the basic process of how we make it. It kind of starts over there. The grain comes in from Charles, and the malt is actually coming from a guy that malts rye just right down the street from him, so 10 minutes away. And that took us a little longer. Malting is a little more complicated, so we were hesitant to switch over until we had some fruit that we liked it. So basically, behind that log is a hammer mill, and you got to mill the grain up really small in order to get the sugar out. And we're going to squeeze onto the brew floor. This is maybe our biggest brew for a lot of whiskey, so it's a little tight, but
Nowhere to go.
all right, and while I'm talking, if anybody wants to, this fermenter right here is fermenting, so feel free to go up these stairs carefully and take a peek in there. Just don't stick your head in there because there's fermentation produces CO2 and you can't breathe that. So you want to keep your head out of the fermenter. All right, so basically whiskey is distilled beer. So if you're starting, as compared to say brandy, which is a fermented fruit, grape, it could be apple, peach, pear, plum, whatever. But the thing about fruits is that they're sugary already, right? The sugar is a simple sugar. You don't need to do anything to them other than maybe crush them up and add some yeast, and it'll ferment and turn into alcohol. But whiskey is distilled beer. So when you make a beer, there's an additional process where you need to take the grain and you need to extract that sugar from the grain. Because in the grain, it's a starch which yeast can eat and can't turn into alcohol, which is what we want. So that's the mashing process that happens. We mix it with hot water at about 152 degrees, and we let it sit for an hour. We add some extra enzymes in there because rye is notoriously difficult to work with. So if you've ever cooked with rye or anything, you know that it gets really sticky, really gummy. The same thing can happen except for using 1,500 pounds of it. So you want to make sure that nothing goes wrong or you can have a very long and hard day. We've done it, don't worry. One of our mottos is make every mistake once. So just once. So after the mashing is done, what you got is a sugary, simple sugar slurry. The grain is in there. Rye is not able to be, it doesn't have a husk, so if you're making beer, you separate that liquid out. But rye, you can't do that. So we take it all together, and then we send it over into the fermenter. So right now, this fermenter, I just got that in there yesterday, so it's going at pretty much its maximum kind of fermentation. And what happens in fermentation is yeast will eat that sugar that we made and create alcohol, which we want, CO2, which you can't breathe, and heat. And among many other things. Those are the kind of primary things. So right now you're seeing that CO2 bubble up. We actually, all of this going around here is cooling water. So that's keeping it at the temperature that we want it to ferment at. And one of the cool things, below your feet. So we actually use the geothermal cooling to cool down our tanks and our stills. There's actually wells on the other side of the parking lot that bring up water from the aquifer. It comes into the building, goes through a heat exchanger, straight back into the ground. Wow. And that cools down there's a tank back there that you can kind of just barely see. That's our cold water tank, so we cool that down using the geothermal cooling energy, and then we send that cold water out and around. So very low energy usage, you're not wasting any water like you would if you were just using city water. And so it's been really great for us. Also, the kind of traditional chillers and things break all the time, so we're lucky on that. So the other thing is that, fermentation, when you're fermenting with yeast, you're also looking for all the flavors that it creates. When you're taking whiskey tours in Kentucky, a lot of times people say, although I think we're kind of starting to change a little bit, but that, 70 to 80% of the flavor of your whiskey is coming from the barrel. But for me, we take a lot of our traditions from Scotch, which we'll get to when we get to our stills. But for me, really, fermentation is where it's at. Like all of your flavor is coming from, you got your grain, and then you choose your yeast, and different yeasts create different flavors, different temperatures create different flavors, different times. And then you get to our wooden fermenters. It's pretty non-traditional now, although these are they were very traditional back in the day. And that's because they also add flavor. They harbor these kind of lactic acid bacteria, so if you know about making pickles or kombucha or anything like that, these lactic acid bacteria produce pleasant, good, fruity notes, and so the wood can add to that. And also we have a pretty long fermentation of about 4 days, and that'll add to that as well. So a little extra time for the yeast kind of finishes its fermentation, and then the bacteria just picks up just a little bit. You see your pH kind of drop down, and that's how you know you're getting what you want. So fermentation questions, anybody? Yeah.
Do you have to replace these?
No, ideally not. So these ones are nice, and they should last for 30, 40 years if we keep them going. However, the tables that you're drinking at are old fermenters. So those ones were not as nice. And also they were sealed on the outside, and we weren't fermenting as consistently, so sometimes they were filled with water, and water does more damage to them. So they were starting to rot out, so I've made them the tables. So they're still serving a purpose, but ideally they should last for a long time. The ones in Scotland, they say will last for 80 years, so. And I think at like Maker's Mark, they still have them. They're like barely held together. I think those are just more for show at this point than anything. But all right, so we have. I didn't really talk too much about the grain bill, but also our grain bill is kind of unique because it doesn't have corn or barley in it. A tradition, like most rye whiskeys out there, have a good amount of corn and some barley in them. So that's kind of like they basically are a bourbon recipe that's flipped to have more rye than corn. Whereas ours is a recipe that is just completely different. Again, we didn't want to make something else that was out there. We didn't want to follow too many traditions. We just kind of wanted to create our own flavors. And that rye malt especially adds a lot of fruitiness, a lot of sweetness, and matures really nicely in barrel. So out of our fermenter, we got about 1,000 gallons at 8%, and then we get to distillation. So this is our wash still, or stripping still. And distillation is really a pretty simple process, especially in a pot still like this. It's basically a pot with a lid on it. So if you've ever cooked with alcohol, you know that alcohol will cook off really quickly. So all we're trying to do is to capture that alcohol vapor as it rises off and leave all that water and grain behind. So the boiling point of water is 212, the boiling point of alcohol is 173, and you know the boiling point of our 8% mixture is somewhere in the middle. So with this run, all we're doing we don't really discriminate besides about what we keep. That happens in the spirit run, but basically we just run it and we try to collect all the alcohol that was in that fermenter. Once it was done fermenting, we tried to collect it all so we can redistill it a second time in order to clean it up and get that flavor that we really want. So from our 1,000 gallons, we'll come down to at 8%, we got 240 gallons at about 25%. So you really see that distillation happening.
Wow.
And it's good. We're leaving behind the things we don't want. The grain goes out to a guy named Hotshot. He's got cattle, and this is ready for its second distillation. So another really important thing to us was the choice of a pot still over a column still. Most rye whiskey, most bourbon are made on big column stills, and column stills are made to produce clean, consistent, very nice whiskey. A lot of the best bourbons and ryes out there are definitely made on these column stills, but what they do is that vapor rises up to the top, and then they pick the point where they want it to come out, and everything else gets left behind. So they're getting exactly the same proof of alcohol coming out of the still all day, but different flavors have different boiling points and will boil off at different times. So by using a pot still, you're collecting a wider range of flavors because you collect from a higher proof way down to a lower proof. So that was why we just wanted to get a lot of flavor. You know, we wanted to collect a lot of flavor, put it into the barrel, and let the barrel and time do its thing. So onto our small still, our spirits, that's when you're actually starting to separate out the things that you do and don't like. It's broken down into 3 parts traditionally: heads, hearts, and tails. The heads come off first. And it's the same process again. We're heating it slowly. Our spirit runs are super slow, about 12 hours from start to finish. And that alcohol vapor starts to rise off. You're leaving that lower stuff behind. The first stuff that comes off the still is the most volatile components, and those are generally harsh. They have kind of have an acetone type character to them, nail polish, varnish, things like that. So we want to leave that behind, and that's all done pretty manually. We still smell, taste, and everything before we actually make the cut. Although we have we know pretty much when it's going to be, but you always want to tell because it's hot today for the fermentation, but in the winter the fermentation is different. So you got to see how that comes out still on the other side. So everything still has kind of a manual component to it. And then after the heads cut, we get into the tail or the hearts. The hearts is your whiskey. That's what ends up going into the barrel, and that'll run for about 6 to 7 hours. And then at the end, you make your tails cut, and the tails is not as good, but it's not like the heads. We don't actually keep the heads. We just use it for cleaning or get rid of it. But the tails, there's still some good alcohol in it that you can recover. But in general, like the tails notes are kind of like sweaty, wet dog, things you don't want in your whiskey. So we leave them out.
Thank you.
But it's all a gradient, right? It's not like it suddenly becomes this or that. You just kind of watch it, and then we decide what portion of that we want to keep because we know that as we go down the road, we're going to like what that turns into in the barrel. So at the end of the day, I'm going to start heading us this way. We went from 1,000 gallons, 8%, and then by the time we're done, we have about 70 gallons at about 71 to 72%. So you really see it come way down. Like I said, we got to bring it down to below 125 to go into the barrel legally. We actually bring it down to 110 because there's some benefits where the sugar, like the wood sugars, are a little more soluble at lower proof. More water kind of means more sweetness, whereas at the higher proof, you're going to get more kind of distinct like cinnamon, vanilla, clove, things like that. So barreling, though, is really what makes whiskey interesting and what makes whiskey at the end of the day. You do all that work in the fermentation, but what comes out of the still isn't bad, but it's not whiskey. It's not something you really want to drink. It's harsh, and so it needs that time in the barrel. So barrels do a lot of things. We have to use a new charred oak barrel. So that char layer actually acts as a filter, like a carbon filter you might use for your water. So it cleans up the whiskey a little bit. And then because that barrel has been burned, you're able to extract oak characteristics from the barrel. So that burning, that charring, and pre-toasting will kind of release some components of the wood that provide sweetness and things called whiskey lactones, which provide coconut flavors that are very important for bourbons especially and ryes. and other kind of nutty flavors like that. So you're cleaning up your whiskey, you're extracting barrel characteristics, and then you're also creating new flavors over time. So there's things called esters in your whiskey, which are kind of these fruity, apple, banana type notes. And there's also acids, which are maybe a little less pleasant when you get them out of your new make. Those things combine over time with other alcohols to create more complex and interesting flavors. And then all those things combine with the flavors from the barrel to give you what your whiskey is. So, but the thing is that takes a very long time to really be done correctly. And you also we use barrels that are all 53 gallons because that gives you enough, you don't over extract that oakiness in time, and you're able to let it sit in the barrel for a lot longer. We're aging, everything you're trying now is going to be 3 years old. Our Epic Straight Rye is 2 years old, and then everything we're making now is going to be aged for at least 4 years in the barrel. So we're working on aging up, but it takes time. Yeah. So any other questions about the process or anything?
New barrels.
Yes. Yes, I have had a lot of trouble getting them. And bottles. I ordered our gin bottles. I ordered in August of last year, and they're not here. And our whiskey bottles I ordered in early December, and they may never get here. So we had to get like a substitute bottle, and we're working on a custom bottle. I mean, it's bad out there. It's pretty bad. But we're doing our best to keep the whiskey going. And I guess the only good side is that whiskey just keeps aging. So at least we got that going.
Yeah.
So anybody else? We'll be hanging out in the gallery for a while, so I'll be around answering any other questions. But when we go back, what you're going to do is you're going to be trying 4 different whiskeys. So there's a 3-year rye that spent the entire 3 years in one barrel, and then there are some 3 barrel finishes that were 2 years in the original and about a year or more in the second barrel. And so your kind of goal is to come up with a blend of those 4 whiskeys that you like, and you smell through them, taste them, see what you think goes well together. I'll be out there if you want to ask me any questions, and then you write down on a little card we give you what percent of each one you want to go into your bottle in percentages of 5, because we can't really, small math doesn't really work out that well. And then when you're done with your card, you just hold it up or flag us down, and we'll come get it, we'll bottle it up for you, and you get to go home with that bottle. And then you can compare with your friends and see who's the best. And I'll judge them right there for you if you want. But for me, blending is all about, I don't think too deeply about it really, because a lot of it is sensory type stuff. So you just want to, you think about it as the nose, the kind of middle of it, and then the finish. And if something feels like it fits on the nose, then that's good. That's kind of how I build it when I'm doing a blend in here as well. I don't write down 100 different tasting notes for everything. I just kind of go with the first 3 things that hit me, and if I like that's what I go with. So you don't need to worry about it. It's going to be good, I promise. So great. All right, we'll have back.
Why don't you smoke on yourself? No, it's tough. You come to my house, I smoke before.
Yeah, that's yours. That's his. That's yours. So I guess this is what you put it in. You get a little bit. I don't know. Oh, you just taste each one. You taste each one. I'll wait for instructions. How about that?
Make your blends. I just want to
I'm always trying to get ahead of the game, just like I did with the perfume, and like
I know they had
went into them. Oh yeah, the little cover. Yeah. You're supposed to wait. You're supposed to wait for instructions.
3 years.
Everybody else is already going, so I guess we can go. But my thing is, what do you use the squeezy for? What do you use this for?
I don't know. That's to take it, pop it out, put it in there. Take it out again.
I didn't do the whole explanation. It's not a perfect representation of what you're going to get, but if you have an idea, like I want a lot of my toasted and a little bit of this sherry, what's that going to be like?
So you mix it in here, okay.
Yeah, just a little extra mixing.
Okay, cool.
Your rice.
Oh, that smells pretty good. I do not want to break these things. I'm gonna like all of them.
Toasted finishes.
If I drop my glasses one more time. Oh, what was that? I guess you are.
I this one though. Yeah, I can smell the cherry. Cherry was strong.
Not yet.
You have to blend it up. You should blend together. What's your mix? Mix them together in here and taste them.
There's no wrong blend. I think it looks good. You really like the toasted. Yeah, that's fair.
Okay. Feeling this.
Put your name on it? Yeah, I put mine for boss on, so I put that on me. You see, I put boss on. I hope you come back and do it. We
need to get like 2 of these.
I'm totally pissed.
I want to see how they sell the bills.
You can't buy the name barrels.
They can use them once.
Oh, really?
I've been one of these together. I've been one of these.
Yeah,
what's your game? I'm not going to use it. I just want to sip it.
it's just you make your table.
Yeah, I've been one of whiskey by bottle.
I have little barrels.
I totally and completely missed the cup. Let me see what I got.
Some
I know, yes.
So the chemist right now. Oh wait, I gotta get you.
Oh, that smells divine.
Oops, sorry.
I put a drip of the smoke,
That's on crazy.
and it just took over the whole thing. A drip. Smoke. Okay, I got mine.
But it tastes like some iced tea.
Yeah, it does. No, it's very summery. Oh, you're not in it. I didn't know if you were backing up because you thought you were. Yeah, it probably is
I
on
know
mine.
he had killed. Yeah, that was a hot damn mess.
The whole thing was, and Lady Gaga did good.
She did a really good job.
Lady Gaga did
She
so
did
good on
do a
that
good
movie.
job.
Mm-hmm.
And from the beginning, though, she was like she knew who he was from the moment she saw him.
Oh yeah, she did real good. Right. I would have got him too if I had known.
He's all nerdy.
Gucci. Wait a minute, are you Gucci?
She knew off the break.
Mm-hmm.